Thanks very much for tuning in to watch this film. Just to say first that if you get something out of these films I do with all the comparisons and the very honest thoughts, please consider subscribing to my Patreon page. Think of it as appreciation of the time that I spend doing these films, the fact that it risks a lot to be honest, and considering the expectation is always for free content nowadays with costs high of websites and cameras and so on. Please don't be thinking that I make lots of money from this channel or it's some sort of shilling exercise. I don't, and it isn't. I do it for the love of audio, content creation, and basically buzzing off the creativity to get there. As I've said before, I try not to go too technical, as the bottom line of any hi-fi review is to fairly say how gear sounds, what it sounds like relative to the competition, and is it value for money. If you don't say that, then you can basically go on until the cows come home about the technology, but it doesn't really matter. Considering too the opportunity cost of what you can buy instead, so this is mainly what I bring to the party. I'll put a link in the description to the Patreon page on my website, so please click in the card on the top right. Also, I'm adding a PayPal link in the description. You can give as much as you want. Also, if you're asking questions too in the comments on YouTube, please consider donations first. The Phoenix USB from Innuos is a USB signal regenerator, reclocker and powerline cleaner of USB sources, which sits between the USB source and the USB input of your DAC. On the back there is simply a USB-B input, USB-A output, on-off switch, IEC inlet, no need for control apps or indicators to tell you it's on. The idea in lay terms is that by improving the clock or timing of data to the DAC, the better the DAC will sound in terms of jitter timing errors. And the Innuos uses an OCXO master clock, reputedly better than most clocks in USB sources. Doubters are going to call BS, but first we need to listen to it, of course. This Innuos has to regenerate or rebuild the USB signal first so that it can then reclock it. And there are two linear power supplies, one for the clock and the other for the 5-volt output to the DAC. Now, having clean power to the DAC means less noise to the DAC and thus lower distortion. The Phoenix USB eats as much as you like format wise because it simply passes on whatever signal goes through it, USB in and USB out. It's hardly rocket science, but it means that it won't matter if you use Redbook CD quality music, high-res PCM, DSD or MQA.
And now for something completely different.
This album, Disgraceful from 90s group Dubstar, is an underrated album with its dreamy pop vocals and alternative dance music feel. But there is some exquisite melodies from vocalist Sarah Blackwood. Definitely an album that I can recommend if you like female vocalists. Melodies in a dance electronic subgenre. Tremendous. There isn't really much to say about this album's substance from New Order, but as old as it may be, it's still relevant today and has everything going for it. Crossing over rock with electronic, this album could have come out last week. New Order is known for classic tracks like Blue Monday, but when you listen to some of the lesser known tracks on this album, like Shell Shock or Confusion, you get a real sense of what New Order are all about. My last pick is Richard Hawley's album Cole's Corner. He's the ex-guitarist from Jarvis Cocker's Pulp. This album came out a while back and has melty, dreamy vocals and brilliant songwriting that is such a good listen, particularly on great hi-fi. If you like crooners and acoustic folky music, then you will really like this album. The songwriting I can't go on enough about, it's just a dream. You're going to be using the Phoenix USB with USB sources, so that means potentially laptops, PCs, etc. But because it's an upgrade to the current range of Innuos servers, you can also use the USB output of an Innuos Zen or Zenith, for example, to the Phoenix USB. Now, by the way, I would say that as a sound quality proposition, you are buying servers like the Zen or Zenith primarily for playing off their hard drives, and they do state their case very well there. Cheaper alternatives like the Bluesound Node 2i are sonically as good for online streaming, if a little less smoothed in tone to the Innuos, but you can't really say that one is better than the other, even with preferences in the mix, I think. I actually prefer streaming off the Node 2i for Qobuz and Tidal compared to playing stored content off the Zenith. Using the Innuos Zenith Mark II I have in my system, the full system is in the description below by the way, I found that the most notable aspects of this reclocker is improvements in depth of sound and a slight increase in resolution. Less obviously, you get improved transient decay with instruments, but I wouldn't say it's a massive change in my setup. But I think you probably need a much better DAC than I currently have available to get the full benefits. You need to be thinking DACs £3,000 to £4,000 plus before you're going to start getting the benefits with this reclocker. I actually heard the Phoenix USB at the UK's 2020 Bristol HiFi show just before COVID shut our arses down, as Tarantino would probably say. And I found with an Innuos Zenith Mark III, they had their Chord Hugo TT2 DAC and some £800 Dan Clark Aeon headphones, that the change with the Phoenix USB was a bit more obvious. Again with soundstage gains, but I think that's probably the TT2 exploiting the full benefits of this reclocker. A DAC, by the way, that I've tested and which is very decent indeed. Also, of the DACs I currently have, they are not as good as the Chord Hugo TT2. Unfortunately, I didn't get the chance to hear the Phoenix USB at home with other USB sources because I only had it for a short time. But with the differences I've heard, I'd have no reason to believe they are not equally as decent with laptops. Okay, it's only a USB reclocker and you can't use other digital connections, so that does somewhat diminish the Phoenix USB's value. And this product doesn't yield the same improvements DACs can at similar levels of spending too. But that's not really the point. I couldn't substantiate it as a buy myself as I'd need a better DAC. But if I did have such a DAC like a TT2 and I had the money, then why not? I've heard it across two systems bringing similar results. It is a product that adds to sound quality therefore, and as we tend to pay for this as audiophiles, it is expensive in products like this, but it makes sense as a finishing off component, and that's why I titled this film as such. So I'm not going to call the Phoenix USB out as an amazingly good value for money product, because it isn't. But Chris, one of my followers who let me borrow it, does put it at a similar level to the Chord Hugo M scaler, which costs about double, and he uses the same speakers as I do, plus a TT2 and a resolving musical fidelity amp, which I've heard, and it's more than good enough to hear the benefits of the Phoenix USB. Thanks to Chris for bringing this unit over, and thanks you guys for watching. If any of my regulars or newbies are nearby and want to hear some of my kit in exchange for trying out and reviewing yours, plus an afternoon swapping music recommendations, please feel free to get in contact. I can give you my opinions about what to try next and what might give most bang for buck. God, I hate that expression, but I don't know why I just used it. But anyway, let's go with it. Thanks very much for watching, and take care.
Ready?
Yep.
Oh, you just one G string is missing.